Hello, welcome to the Friday Cuppa. I'm your host, Victoria. Each episode we'll be sitting down with a nice cuppa, because who doesn't like a bit of tea, to chat about life, business, and everything in between. So today I welcome an old school friend and guest, Chris. So, hi, Chris, and welcome to the Friday Cuppa.
Hello, thank you for having me.
First question is, how do you have yours?
Um, Cheers, by the way. I'm not a tea fan. I'm a
Okay.
coffee guy. And yeah, I like it with a little bit of honey. And when it's being brewed in the cafetiere, I like a cardamom pod put in there. It's a bit weird, I know,
I
but
was going
actually,
to say I've not heard of cardamom before, but honey I
if you,
can get behind.
yeah, if you try the cardamom, I think it's Egyptian or Turkish, but it tastes out of this world. So
I
cheers.
I drink decaf Earl Grey, and I don't have milk in it anymore, so I tend to
Mm,
just put a little bit of honey in that.
yeah.
I have it in that. So we've just done that, but we've discussed this. How do you have your cuppa? But if anyone who's watching along wants to share with how you have yours, then feel free to put them in the comments. And we'll go back to here. So, Chris, obviously
Yes.
we went to school together, and most people don't know that. So it's been what, about 28 years since we left?
Seems like an absolute age.
It does. It does.
Um,
I can remember year seven being in the same form and classes. It's a very long time ago.
yeah, very long time. I think we live quite close to each other as well, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, well, I think so too.
Yeah.
Okay, so career-wise, you've had quite an interesting background in retail management.
Yes, I have.
Do you want to
Um,
tell the audience a little bit about that and about what you do, and then we'll go into the photography stuff?
so yes, I've been in retail for over 25 years. Started on the shop floor, a Saturday boy. I remember it well. Working on the Botley Road. Uh, uh, Saturdays and Wednesday evenings. I remember it.
Um,
I worked my way up through. Uh, Got myself a shop. Worked for several retailers. Um, and now I've kind of branched away from shops, and I'm in um, business management. BDM. I'm a BDM now, so
okay,
business development role.
and you've been in your new role just for a couple of months, I understand.
Yeah. So yeah, 30 days really.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow. And how's
sixth
that
of
going?
January. Yeah, I love it. Love it. It's great.
Good, good, good. Right, so obviously you've come on today to talk about your photography.
Yes.
And my first question for you would be, when did you first pick up a camera seriously, and what sparked your interest in photography?
I I I remember it very well actually. Um, we were on a family holiday, and my dad had a Russian, I can't remember the name, Zenit. It's a really old-fashioned Russian camera, and he let me have a play with it outside. We were staying in a cabin, and it was a really hot day. The grass was all sort of bare and parched by the sun, and I
Right.
was trying to photograph butterflies.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I don't think any of them came out in focus. In fact, I don't even know what's happened to them. But I just it was something about the sound, and I can even smell. I remember the smell of the camera. It was sort of cased in
Was
leather.
that a film camera?
It was a film camera, yeah.
Yeah.
I think they all have a similar sort of smell, but I remember it really clearly. The sort of leather
It's that,
case and everything.
with the old school cameras, it's that click sound as well, isn't it?
Mm,
You
yeah.
don't get that quite the same with the digital these days.
It's yeah, there's yeah. So if you look at
See,
very recently the digitals,
I think
it's
my
not the
first
same.
camera was this little long thing. I think it was about 10 or 11. But the
Mm,
first DSLR I had was a film one. And I went to art college, and we got taught how to use, what do you call it, where we did all the developing in the room and so forth.
mm,
And they were god awful photos, and they did not come in focus at all. But that's what, for me, that's what really sparked it. When I learned the
yeah,
process of taking the photos, setting everything up, and developing it all.
Yeah.
That's where my interest started. And then obviously when I got older, I got into sort of digital cameras. It's a bit different. That's good. I got a few of your photos which we can share
Have
with
you?
people.
You dug them
I
out?
do.
Where
So
did you find them?
on your
Oh,
social
wow.
media. So I
Yeah.
kind of like this one. This is really cute. And obviously you do wedding photography, I'm guessing, as well.
I don't anymore, but yeah, it was something I did. Um, but yeah, it's kind of now more of a hobby than
Right.
anything.
Yeah, it's same with me. I did motorsport photography for a while
Mm,
and I loved it, but I couldn't go back to it now. It's,
mm.
that's a different lifetime ago almost. This was pretty cool. I like
That's
the deer.
Yeah, that's a recent picture. And yeah, that's in Richmond Park in London.
Wow.
Me and my dad used to go regularly in autumn for the rut, and Leah, my eldest daughter, she's getting into photography now. I think she'll be better than. In fact, she probably is better than me already.
I've taken a look at her photos. She's got some impressive
Yeah,
stuff, and we'll have
yeah,
to make sure we include her links in with the video and stuff when we post it to YouTube.
yeah. But this
Um,
was on the trip together. That was another one.
I
I
mean,
much
that was
prefer.
amazing to capture that, to see it like that, because we have deer around here, but usually by the time I see them and got my phone out to snap it, it's tiny
Yeah,
little dot in the background.
it does feel a little bit like you're cheating when you're in Richmond Park though, because you can get a lot closer. They're very tame. Excuse my dog tapping around.
It's okay. Oh,
um, yeah, it does kind of feel like cheating a little bit because if you were in the wild, then yeah, you wouldn't get that close. So
no,
you'd need
no, you wouldn't.
some serious lens behind you to get that
Yeah,
close.
that's the thing with some of the big lenses doing the motorsport. I can remember being trackside behind the tyre wall at Silverstone, and I'm
Mm,
looking down the lens, going snap, 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 and then you kind of go, oh, leap. And you have to move because the car's about to hit the tyre wall that you're stood behind.
mm.
So it can be quite
I've
deceptive with the lenses as well.
I've seen videos of that very scenario, and yeah, it looks quite scary actually.
Yeah, it's more than that though. The thing I used to find with I used to love doing the motorsport photography, but the
Mm,
action shots I liked weren't quite the same as the ones that garnered the most attention when people saw
mm,
the photos afterwards. So, for example, one of my favourite photos I caught of this car sideways, clipping the gravel pit and all the
mm.
gravel flying in the air, and I really liked the motion of it. Whereas because they were it was drifting and they wanted to see the car sideways, they weren't so keen on hitting the gravel because that means they've gone wrong. But to me,
Yeah.
I just loved the action in the photo.
Mm.
Okay, so we've gone through a few of your photos, and alongside the nature stuff, and you did the weddings, events, and portraits. How did you develop your style, and who or what influenced you along the way?
Okay, so when I first started, I didn't have a style. I just kind of picked up the camera, pointed it, and snapped away. And some of them were okay, um, not many. But as I kind of got my first proper camera, and now I look back at it, it wasn't really a proper camera, but it was proper at the time.
Yeah.
Um, I got quite into high dynamic range photography.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of that.
Not yet
Yeah,
heard of the term, no.
yeah, HDR. It's a kind of it's a processing where the camera can only see a certain amount of dynamic range. Your eyes can obviously adjust for the sky
Yeah.
and the land when you're taking a landscape shot, but the camera can only really expose for the land, and the sky is then blown out, or the sky and then the land is plummeted into darkness.
Right.
So HDR photography, you take a bracketed image. This is all getting technical now. Bracketed images at different shutter speeds,
Right.
um, so you get different exposure levels, and then in the processing software, you then build them together, and then you've got kind of the foreground landscape in at the right level,
Right.
and you've also got the sky, so it looks a bit weird. And in the early days, the processing was a bit surreal, if I'm honest. You looked at it and it was a bit like, oh, but it was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I've moved away from that to more of a traditional kind of I like really soft images with a lot of depth. So
Yeah.
like really silky backgrounds. We call
Have
it
you
bokeh.
have you done any corporate photography?
A few bits and pieces, yes. Yeah. Not
And how does
not
that compare? What's your favourite type, I suppose, is what I'm trying to ask.
my favorite type is, well, like I'm torn between two.
Okay.
I love landscape photography, and I also like photographing people. And you kind of you don't often get that. People are either people, portraits, or landscape. But I like finding stories in images, and I like taking a picture of really interesting random people, but you can tell there's a story behind the
Yeah.
person. Behind those
See,
eyes is a story.
I'm not so good at portrait stuff. Um, I'm better with action stuff. So, for
Mm,
example, we did all the motorsport, and then when my sons did rugby, I would photograph some of that as
yeah.
well. So it's that action and movement stuff I'm good at capturing,
Mm,
more so than portraits. I'm terrible at. But everyone has their pros and cons. Um, Okay, so what other questions have I got for you? I'm just reading through my notes quickly, which is probably ever so unprofessional, but you'll have to excuse me. Um, so, what is it in the challenge of capturing those fleeting moments, the technical aspects, or something entirely different for you?
both.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's weird, but both. Like, um, I'm 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 quite an analytical yet arty kind of person. It's an odd combination, but the 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 process of taking a photo, you'll know, it's quite sort of mechanical.
mm,
There's shutter speed, ISO. Um, you've got to factor in all of these. There's three elements to the camera, but to come out with something artistic is great. I mean, it's all about numbers, really. It's
yeah.
there's a link. There's a link with the analytical numbers, and every
I
number
like
tells a story.
one thing I used to like photographing was old buildings.
Yeah.
Because quite and like you can go into London and you look up, people don't do it. If you look up, you see some amazing details on the buildings or like of things, and most people just walk past and miss.
Yeah.
And so for me, that always fascinated me, the architecture and just different shapes and lines
Mm.
and all the artistic details. Um,
When when you begin to kind of notice things that will work in photographs, whether it be foreground interest or just the sky, the way the sky is looking, it kind of opens the world kind of looks different when
it
you
does.
start looking through for photographer's eyes.
But
It
also,
is
do you
different.
not find that a lot of people will just literally just go, oh, snap, and take a photo in quite a singular view? Whereas
Mm,
for me, like I like to crouch down and look at different
mm,
angles, and I might see something and just frame it differently.
mm,
A lot of and I do get it because obviously, everyone's got an iPhone in their pocket these days, and you just go snap, and the photos just as good as with the proper cameras. But
yeah.
sometimes it just lacks creativity and
Mm,
an enthusiasm in the photos, and you can just
mm,
sort of think, well, that would be such a better photo if you just had a slightly different angle and maybe
mm,
capture this bit. And sometimes details lost as well because you just snap straight on rather than
yeah.
moving around and adjusting, setting up.
If you just take a picture from eye level, that's exactly the same as everybody else is going to take that photograph.
Yeah.
If you change the perspective, so you drop down or get up high, it adds a whole new dynamic to the
I
picture.
think the highest I've ever been taking photos was, I think back to when it was 2018. No, sorry, 2008. Not 2018. 2008. I went to Mondello Park in Ireland and was photographing a drift event over there. I think it might have even been one a few years before that. Was on a scissor lift above a race circuit taking photos. That's
Wow.
probably the highest I've been. All I would say though, as much as I've loved doing that, it's bloody cold.
Yes, I can imagine.
And in fact, that was probably the hardest thing with doing the motorsport stuff for me, was a very long day, trackside. It's not so easy to come in and out, and you're cold. So I can remember, backpack with all the lenses and all the attachments and all the batteries charged and the memory sticks, but also having to have your lunch and drinks and everything else on you as well. People don't realise that as a photographer, you're camped out there all day.
Yeah.
It can be. I'm trying to think of the right word. It can be quite time consuming. It's not something that's quite fast, although the process of taking the picture can be quite fast. To get the right shot and to cover something, sometimes that can be quite time consuming. So I imagine when you go off with Leah, did you say it was, and you're photographing out, I bet you could be gone all day doing that.
Quite easily, yes. Yeah. And she snaps everything at the moment. So yeah, we can take a day to walk 1 mile sometimes.
I used to find that I would do 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 photos in a day, and then you'd have to try and sift through it. So you go through it and you pick out maybe your best couple of hundred, which you submit to the magazines that you're working with, and then your second best sort of couple of hundred, which would go onto this forums or whatever, because everyone's desperate to get photos of themselves on the circuit and their mates and things, and then whatever's left is just basically discarded, because if you didn't make the first and second cut, it's no good.
Yeah, no, I did that, downloading images from wedding shoots and a couple of the shoots. I use just vast amounts of images, but now when I'm out now, sometimes we go out on a photo walk and I won't even take the camera out the bag if it's not right. I just I don't even try now. It's just we just wait for the right point.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Am I right in remembering that you used to do bushcraft as well? Or am I wrong there? So
yes.
did the photography come into that?
No, but it might do in the future.
Okay, that's fair enough. And
yeah, watch this space.
What's coming up for you in your photography then in the next year or so? Anything interesting planned, and any projects that you're working on?
I'd quite like to do. I live next to a canal, the Grand Union Canal, and I find boating people really interesting. They're a crazy bunch, and I'm at the point where I'm probably going to go and start wandering, maybe in the spring, in the spring evenings, wandering down the canal and just take some portraits of
so that's the
guys on the
difference
boats.
With obviously a DSLR as opposed to like a GoPro. And I'll tell you a little story. Last summer we take the kayaks out on the river and stuff here, as you know, and I had, well, it wasn't a GoPro, it was a cheaper version of GoPro, like £100 one off Amazon, in a waterproof case mounted on the front of my kayak. So I had some amazing footage as we're paddling along in our group of friends, and you're going through the trees and along and up to the weir and stuff. And then, bless them, one of the children knocked the front of my boat with a paddle, and the camera fell off and into the water. And we were like, oh. It was underwater for 5 minutes. It was recovered, got it out, got it home, completely dry inside. Everything came out perfect. It's the funniest footage ever as it's being recovered, because the little kids sort of hand in the water and then lifting the camera out. But it just made me a bit like, oh, I'm not sure if I'd take the really expensive camera gear next time, because I'd be worried about that getting knocked. So on the screen, I've got your Instagram account, and I'm just going to show Leah's, which I think I showed earlier. as well. So
I think she's much better than me, by far. Once she's got some decent gear behind her, she'll be away.
So you're going to invest in her future, is what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes.
That's fair enough.
And if she's listening behind me, you're not having my camera just yet.
Right. Okay. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. And before we tie things up, I just want to share with everyone the next episode. So let's show this. We've got coming up on the 21st of February, I have David Earl coming on. And David is a boxing coach who uses the boxing to help people with their mental health. So that's going to be an interesting chat. And if you want to catch Chris, you can see the address, find him on his Instagram, at Chris Stickley Photography. And if you want to watch us on Catch Up or want to subscribe, we are available on YouTube at the Friday Cuppa. So thank you so much for coming on and being an amazing guest. And,
you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. And hopefully people will connect and come and see your work, because you've got some really amazing stuff going on there.
Thank you. Very kind.
Thanks.